Okay, so we're going to do more problems with completing the square today. Go through them and see how you do. So this is a continuation of 10-3. More practice at completing the square. So the first problem we're going to do, and don't let it bother you to put something in here that's not an x. I can put any variable I want to, and it still is the same as x. So the first one I'm going to give you is a squared minus 14a plus 3 equals negative 10. This is a perfect example of something that I would use completing the squares for. This is not a perfect square trinomial here, is it? No. So do you remember what we want to do first? We want to get rid of that plus 3 because we want to make this position right there a nice perfect square, because a squared is a perfect square. And we need to figure out what that c needs to be with that negative 14 to make a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to subtract the 3 from both sides. We end up with a squared minus 14a plus a blank equals, add these together, you get negative 13 plus a blank, right? We have to figure out what goes in that blank. What do you do? Yep, we're finding c. So c equals b over 2 squared. And so what's my b? 14. It's negative. Don't worry about the fact that it's negative. So 14 is divisible by 2, so I get 7 squared, which is 49. So I'm going to add a 49 to both sides. Now, don't I know for sure that that's a perfect square trinomial? So I don't have to test it. I already know. And the whole purpose of that was so that I could have something that factors into that pattern, 1 parentheses squared. What sign goes in the middle, positive or negative? Why a negative? The middle term is negative. So that's a negative equals, and then what goes in here? Square root of your bookends, right? So square root of a is square root of a, square root of 49 is 7, and then a negative 13 of positive 49 is 36. A nice, happy, perfect square, which makes life easy. Now what do you do? Take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root of the right side, you have to do plus or minus the square root of that 36. And then on the left, what do you get? A minus 7 equals, and on the right, plus or minus 6. We're almost there. Now what do you do? Add 7, and I get A is equal to 7 plus or minus 6. Then we can actually figure out what that is. What's 7 plus 6? 13, and 7 minus 6? 1. So this parabola crosses the x-axis at 13. So if I had chosen instead from the very beginning, because these are nice, happy answers, nice integer answers, yes? No. Doesn't matter which one comes first. I could have instead added a 10 to both sides, right, and set one side equal to 0. Wouldn't this have been a factorable quadratic? I know it's factorable because those turn out to be nice, pretty numbers. But if you're told that you have to complete the square, you have to use complete the square. So that's a nice example. We're going to do one more before whiteboard work. So example 2. This time I'm going to give you x squared. No, I don't like that one. I'm going to choose a different one. How about this? Might be interesting. All right, so we're going to try d squared plus 20b plus 11 equals 200. What do I do first? Subtract 11. So I get d squared plus 20b plus blank equals, what's 120? 189 plus blank, right? Don't forget your plus blanks, very important. Then what do you do? Find C. Then you take B, which is 20, divide it by 2, you get 10, and square it, I get 100. So I'm going to put 100 on both sides. So what does the left factor as? D plus, square root of that, 10 squared equals, what's 189 plus 100? 289. Is 289 a perfect square? It is. 17 times 17. And so when you take the square root of both sides, plus or minus, this does turn out nice. D plus 10 equals plus or minus 17. Now what? Subtract 10. You get D is equal to negative 10 plus or minus 17. So your two answers for D are, what's in? Yep. A negative 10 and a positive 17 is 7. And a negative 10 and a negative 17 is negative 27. Let me see if I can find one that won't be such a pretty perfect square. I know, but I want to get one that's irrational. You can do that. Either way is fine. Perfect. Will you put them on my desk, please? Thank you. Okay, how about this one? I think this one won't work out. This will be the last one I do, whether it works out or not. All right, here we go. You ready? Example 3. You can try this on your own. The only issue is I believe the answer is going to be irrational. So we have x squared minus 10x equals 23. Do you have to move anything this time? No, but you did put your blanks in. Find your C. See how your right side is not a perfect square this time? So when you take the square root of both sides, you have to simplify the square root of 48. .48 has 4 2's in it and a 3. All I did was prime factor it, which means I can take out 2 sets of 2's. So that would mean I would have a 2 times 2 out front. Bless you. So I have x minus 5 equals plus or minus 2 times 2 is 4, and then the 3 stays underneath. Now to finish off our solution, you're going to add 5 to both sides, but it's in front of that plus minus. So you can leave your final answer as 5 plus or minus 4 radical 3. So that's what your irrational answer would look like. And you might have some of those today. Any other questions before we do our work?
No.